Hiring people is one of the most important things you can do, and it is one of the biggest pain in the neck activities you can do because it is time consuming. You don't have time. Otherwise, you wouldn't be hiring someone if you weren't spread too thin, right? It is hard to know if someone is legit or not if you're asking the right questions. And you got to loop a lot of times your other team members involved, so it's taken away from their work. It is a whole thing. So the worst possible outcome when we hire is to think to ourselves, this person's not a fit. After all of that, I made a mistake. It's devastating. But I see so many leaders making the mistake of not evaluating if this person's a fit or not until way later after a lot of damage has been done, or deciding within 5 seconds. Okay, so we're on one of the extremes. And that is what we're going to talk about today, is answering the question, did I make a bad hire? How do I know? And what do I do? If you've asked that question before, then you're like 100% of us leaders out there that have wondered that. And so let's say, how would we even be thinking about this in the first place? So somebody starts, and maybe after a week or two, you start to think, gosh, are they a fit? Are they getting along with folks? Are they taking enough work on? Are they really owning something? If they're in a more senior position, are they driving strategy? Or are they just doing busy work? Or if they're in more of a tactical position, are they getting enough done? Or are they actually worth what I'm paying them? We start asking all sorts of questions. It's kind of like when you buy something really expensive and you're super excited in the store, and then you get back home and you're like, what? Did I need that? I've had that buyer's remorse a lot of times. This is like my inner dialogue. I have to fight so hard and say to myself, you wanted this thing, you evaluated all the different options, you made this choice, you went in there going into confident, stop overthinking it. And when it comes to a hire, because it's a person and things are complex and it could not be what you thought, the little wheel of overthinking can turn so fast and so hard. So let's say you're on the side that decides in 5 seconds, oh my God, this was a mistake. This person's not a fit. Get them out of here. Well, the question to ask ourselves is, did we do onboarding? Did we give this person insight into what they need to be doing, how they're successful, what they should be working on, how other people do things successfully here, insight into your work style, the way you make decisions, what success looks like to you, what a good job looks like, where you want to be looped in, what they should be doing by the end of week 1, by the end of week 2, by the end of week 4. This is all the stuff we talk about in my Ops Playbook program, because if you don't have a good onboarding process, you have no idea if that person's a good fit or not. So when we start, if we're really early on thinking, I don't think this person's a fit, they're out of here, it's bad, that's where we got to look back and say, what was the onboarding? What expectations did I make? And I'm going to tell you right now, so you don't get to be the other side of this where you waited 6 months and then you realize the person's not a fit. We should be checking in with ourselves after about 30 days. I encourage everyone that I work with to have check-ins at 30, 60, and 90 days so that you can be thinking, okay, are we on track with onboarding? Are we seeing what we want to be seeing? You want actual opportunities to be seeing this and course correcting. So we want to be checking in, but we don't want to make the decision, right? Unless something egregious happened, but that's not what we're talking about here, right? We're saying I'm not sure, I'm not quite positive, but is it just that the person approaches work in a different way? Maybe we hired someone from a different industry or work experience because we wanted a different sort of way of working on it. Now that they're doing it differently, we're like, oh, I don't know if I like that. So this is on us, right? We got to think about, okay, am I holding a reasonable standard? Am I giving this person an opportunity? What feedback have I shared? And I'm going to tell you, 9 times out of 10, this is real talk, you didn't give the feedback. You noticed you didn't like something and you're like, this is what they thought was okay? Then you're texting me. I got my voice notes of my clients, 15-minute long, talking about all the stuff their team member didn't do. And I'm like, okay, well, what feedback have you shared with them? And it's crickets. So we've got to give the feedback. We got to give this person the benefit of the doubt. I had a client and the team member started and she right away was unavailable, was on a flight instead of being in the office that day. So they were working from home, but in office would be at home. and she was not available. And she said, well, I thought I'd get Wi-Fi on the flight. I can get everything on my computer. I didn't have any meetings. I was just going to be working on the computer that day. And my client told me this, and I said, well, what feedback have you given this team member? And she's like, well, she's new. I don't want to be the bad guy. I don't want her to feel like, she messed up or get upset. And I was like, hey, but you're really upset about this. And this is a pretty big deal breaker for you, right? So it's a conversation you've got to have. And she brought it up with the team member, and she said, hey, I realize you thought you'd be on Wi-Fi, but it's unpredictable on the airplane and you weren't able to have it. And you were out the whole day and we weren't able to get a hold of you. And there was really important stuff we had to decide. And the team member said, oh my gosh, you're so right. I'm so embarrassed that I did that. I'm new. I'm still trying to prove myself. I don't know what I was thinking. And she apologized. And she has never done that again. She's been a stellar A player, 10Xer, who made a mistake, who had an oversight. And because her boss said something to her, she was able to fix it. Now, what I see a lot of times, we don't have that conversation. And so we just start adding that up. Okay, there was that airplane thing. Now, the second thing, she went to a dentist appointment. She didn't mention that. Like, now there's this thing. And so you're keeping score, and you've never given the person the opportunity. Now, as the boss, you might think like, who thinks like just being on an airplane on your Wi-Fi is okay? I get it. That was my opinion. But if you don't tell the team member, you don't give them an opportunity, you can't let them fix it. Yeah, it was a mistake, but she fixed it and she never did that again. Okay. So that's what we want to do with the early little grumblings of this is not a fit. Now, what happens if you get down and it's 6 months later and you're like, I don't know. I mean, are they a fit or not? Or are they getting along with the team members? I don't really know. And do I even need this hire? You're all over the place. Okay. And you're thinking, probably, I'm paying this person and I want to make sure I'm getting my money's worth. Right? Yeah. Natural. We'd all be thinking that. So again, it goes to a little bit of the onboarding. Like, what were the expectations? What feedback have we given? That principle for the deciding too quickly, it still applies. But then we want to get really clear. Okay, we're 6 months in. How is this person performing? What are the expectations of their job? What are we measuring in terms of key performance indicators, KPIs, metrics, goals? Is this person delivering? Have they had sufficient time to learn the ropes? Probably after 6 months they have. And so now you're evaluating against the criteria of the role, kind of almost treating it like a rubric, like, okay, here's what was spelled out for them to do. Are they meeting these expectations? And you decide if they're meeting them by first having set the expectations. So if you look at that and you're like, well, did they know that was their job, or would they have known? Then you're kind of starting the clock over. If anything on that rubric, on that, what was the job description and what were they supposed to be focusing on? If it's things that you really never talked about, but they were implied, that's stuff that we've got to reset with conversations and for all of it. Like, nothing can be implied anymore. I'm just telling you that. Like, nothing these days in the work. I have heard it every single day. Every single business owner I work with has all sorts of implied expectations with their team members, and they don't know. They're not reading. They can't read your mind. I wish they could. It'd be way easier for all of us, but they can't, right? So we've got to spell that out. Now, there's things that I think are way more difficult to repair. Things that I would say are red flags to me when I'm working with a team. And one of those is someone lying, like telling you one story and telling team members other stories. Misrepresentation, lying, right? They're kind of playing both sides. Someone that is negative and sort of spinning up negativity, kind of like us versus them with the boss. And they're telling you maybe, hey, I'm trying to, keep the peace, but they're actually just stirring stuff up. That is a intentional action. So I don't think that's a good thing at all. Again, negativity, I mentioned someone that really can't get along with other people. You're on a team. A team has to be cooperative and collaborative. That is, by definition, what's required to be a team. So that's something that's much more difficult to teach and coach through and upskill someone. So I'm kind of identifying some of the things that are not really expectations, but are just, this person is probably not the right choice. And sadly, I get it. sometimes we don't see that until we've had a really hard situation, or there was a project was at risk. We saw someone's true colors, or someone was out of town and they had to cover. And then you see these sides of people. Sometimes it takes a good amount of time, but I don't think we need to wait till 6 or even 12 months to figure that out if we've had signals earlier on. And if someone's not a fit, it's in both of your best interests to figure that out. That person is probably not happy. They're struggling to figure out, how do I be successful here? Especially if it's a skills gap and they really, it's not the right job for them. Maybe what was required of the job took a little bit of a different shape. And they're like, I thought I could do this, but I really don't know if I can. Maybe it's that, they're used to working one way and it's really hard for them to shake that. Like let's say you have a startup kind of scrappier business and someone comes from corporate and they are really used to the bureaucratic and the more rigid structures and sort of at that pace. It's going to be hard for them if they didn't want that scrappiness, and they didn't want, they might always be, well, in this company it was like this, and this company, like, all right, we get it. Like, that's not where we are anymore. That can be really hard on the team, right? So you're starting to look at what are things that are coachable, teachable. Can you develop them through, or is it really not a fit? But I'm going to say this, if you get to 12 months and you are thinking, I've known all this stuff since 3 months in, I did the 30-day review, I did the 60, I did the 90, at 6 months, I wasn't sure. What are you doing at 12 months? Like, what are you doing? Stop making a sunk cost of having spent all this time hiring and all this time interviewing on keeping someone that's not a fit. If they're not happy or they're not adding value or they're actually bringing down the team, this is something that we want to figure out. And I am saying to figure out and exit compassionately, fairly, equitably, all those things. This is not a conversation about firing. I'm saying, how are you assessing, right? So you're not jumping to conclusions and you're giving someone an opportunity. Now, a lot of work that I do with teams is performance coaching. And I've seen just as many people turn it around as folks that have said, I don't think this is for me, or not turn it around, essentially. When someone gets hard feedback, it's not the end. Sometimes folks just say, okay, wow, like I didn't realize how big of an issue this was, or gosh, I really need to get it together. And I encourage you to take those steps because, sometimes, a lot of the times, I'd say just as often as not, people get back into gear and it can be repaired. So it's not a lost cause. But what creates a lost cause is the resentment and being like, I just don't give that person any responsibilities. So you're overloading other team members and everyone's just kind of like figuring it out until you deal with the situation. Compassion is figuring that out so that person can save face and everyone just kind of comes out in a better place, right? So we might be on two sides of this. Is this a fit or not? It might be within 2 seconds and I'd give some more time. And it might be way past the time you could have figured that out. Both of those are mitigated and rectified by expectation setting, onboarding, giving feedback, and continuing to say, hey, what are the things that are coachable, can be developed, and what are the things that are just not a fit? We're dealing with people here. There are no guarantees. I have been asked so many times, like, how do I hire someone to guarantee they'll work out? Like, that's not the way it works. Your best person ever could love your company. They could live for it. And then they get a job in a dream city or for a company that's offering them 2-3 times as much pay. And they're like, gosh, I don't want to leave, but I can't pass it up. So it's like, we can't control anything. These are humans, my friends. But we can quiet our overthinking by thinking about it much more methodically. And that's what we talked about today. See you next time.